I'm Laura Redhead Benson, and we're back. Well, I'm back. I've brought you back.
Brought me back to the Laura and Benny show.
The Laura and Benny show. Okay, will I start that again?
Yes, I want my proper introduction, please.
Okay, sorry. So we're back. Welcome to the Laura and Benny show.
Oh. I'm chuffed now. Do you know why?
Why is that now?
Because last week, sorry, I'm slurping coffee.
Yeah.
I've got a jug
of coffee.
A jug and a half.
Yeah. This could get bad, the caffeine.
On our first day last week,
right,
we had the same amount of downloads as we did for the entire week of our first episode.
So we're not just chatting to each other, people are actually listening to this.
People are actually listening, or it's just
mortified.
Like one or two members of our family that just keep clicking play.
It's your mother and my mother.
It's probably, on the lockdown.
Over and over and over. Like our only, I know you've got your aunts now who'll be fans as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they love a good listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
But I think today it would be good to start talking about the wedding planning side of things. Obviously, we have to talk about that within I'm going to call it COVID land. The land of COVID.
COVID world.
COVID world?
COVID.
Okay. But planning within the situation that's going on at the moment. So we'll get onto the positive side of planning.
It's always going to affect you, but I suppose, like, people are starting now. Weddings are going to happen in 2020.
Yes. How they'll happen in 2020 is just the questions we need answered.
And if you're lucky enough, you might even have an epic September wedding.
Oh, no, don't start this again. Don't start this again. I actually can't. I can't. So today is the last day of the Irish lockdown.
We are going into phase 1.
Yeah, it's exciting.
It's partial lockdown. It's an easing of the lockdown.
The Irish version of a lockdown. It's the most extreme we had.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, going into phase 1. Phase 1 for weddings doesn't really mean a whole lot, but it is a positive step forward.
It's really good. We are going into phase 1. They're positive. They're not holding back. The numbers are reducing in number of cases and stuff like that. So phase 1 is happening. It's still very cautious. Still got to stay at home. We got that 5k radius though to get on the bikes and. My dad's going golfing.
That's true, actually. Yeah, he managed to get his name down for the very, very first day out of golfing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like 5.2 kilometers.
Oh, he can't go. Oh, I'm gonna report him.
I think he's trying to work out, like, if he was to stand on the edge of his driveway, on the edge of the driveway to the golf club, whether he gets that 0.2 kilometers back.
0.2 kilometers back. Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it'll be allowed. I think it'll be allowed so that it'll give your mother and your sister a bit of peace and quiet. While he leaves the house for hours on end to go golfing.
Might be needed.
But that is good for people though, like, and I think tennis is the same, isn't it? Like there's so it's great. Yeah. But the message is to still stay at home, because I know, like, the hardware stores, I was laughing at the pictures they were putting out did you see them? They were preparing for the onslaught that will be the garden centres and hardware stores tomorrow, and they've just got like rows and rows of queuing and where to stand. But the funniest thing you told me recently was
apparently Argos is a garden store.
So, like, I don't know how they can class themselves under hardware or garden store.
Yeah, well, they sell everything under the sun, so they're going along the lines of, we sell it, so we're selling it.
Yeah. I think the likes of IKEA and those kind of places though were pretty
they were disappointed, I think, but
that they're not opening tomorrow.
We didn't need them.
Yeah.
But the gatherings outside is still only up to a maximum of 4 for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So you can't go outside and have a wedding.
No.
Technically.
You need 5 people to get married.
5 people have a wedding. Micro weddings will start happening in June, apparently. But there might be some sneaky ones happening around the world.
I won't get into that. Don't get me started. But yeah, so it doesn't, like, for the phase 1, things will stay the same in the wedding world. But we are moving towards the phases we want to get to, which is 4 and 5.
Yeah, 4 and 5. So,
4 and 5.
June, let's go with the micro ones first. If the micro ones can happen, that would be brilliant.
Yeah.
So at least you can start to see the micro weddings happening, and that's fun. People actually getting married and saying I do. That'll be really cool. And then in July, small weddings.
Exactly.
And then in August, larger weddings.
Yeah, larger.
So we're going to get there through the phases. It's going to be good. Tony's going to look after us.
Yeah, if we all just behave ourselves though, I know, like, we're moving forward and the numbers are going down, but the numbers are going down because we've been at home for how many weeks now? I actually don't even know.
Don't know, but it seems crazy. It's like
it's a
8
long
or 9.
time.
Like, it's a long time if you count them out.
And there still is around the 100 cases a day. So the more people move around, the more chances it'll start to creep back up again. So we still need to behave ourselves. We don't need to go out needlessly.
Yeah.
Stay at home, people.
Stay at home so we can have weddings in July and August, particularly.
People want to get back to normality. Stay at home.
Okay, so if we are looking at venues, because you were saying, actually, this is really more positive news. Postponement emails were down.
They are.
And new inquiries.
Yeah, up.
We're up. So new inquiries. There was more new inquiries this week than there was postponement emails.
Yes,
That's
which
awesome.
was so lovely. I actually don't know myself. Now, to be fair, the postponement emails being down is probably because there's not that many people left, but we won't get into that. But because I know last week we were talking about like how people would move forward in planning their wedding if they just gotten engaged, but they can't really go view their venue. Would they do virtual tours, or would they just go about the venue they knew? And I have a couple of people who are booking their venue this weekend, early next week. They're not going to see it. They know it. They're happy with it. They're ploughing ahead. So that's positive, because I didn't think we'd see that for a while.
Yeah.
No. Which is really good. And the really, really lovely thing was they got on to us first and asked us, when are we available, so they could work their wedding around it.
Cool.
So it was amazing.
They work out a date with us, and then they're going to go to the venue and kind of
exactly, and they're willing. There's one couple are willing to go to a Thursday, so we can be there, which is lovely.
That's savage.
It's really nice. Cool. Yeah, really nice. So yeah, I mean, like, people are definitely planning their weddings. I think the 2020 couples are very much aware of, you know, what potentially will need to be done on their wedding day, but when it comes to the social distancing side of things, like having the 2 meter rule in place, it's not something that could affect just 2020. It could run over until we kind of have a vaccine or something in place. Because if you look at New Zealand,
yeah, I think New Zealand. So New Zealand is in probably one of the best situations where they've isolated themselves and they kind of stopped it from coming into the country too much, and they clamped down and traced it within the country. So they've kind of got it down to 0, if not really small numbers. And they're going back to normal business and schools and everything like that. But they're still really cautious about social distancing and the 2 meter rule and gatherings. So they've given new police laws and whatnot.
They're pretty strict on the police laws.
Yeah,
if there's music being played at a party in your house, they're coming in and stopping it.
They're going in. It's not kind of like your privacy laws and kind of
they don't need a warrant or something.
That's kind of like the because it's an exception. They're going to break up gatherings. So so that's a good example of, that's a country that's probably well ahead of us because of their situation. So if you want to say 2 or 3 months away from where we want to be, if we were to have a great situation and kind of get it down to low levels, the same as New Zealand, in 2 or 3 months' time, it's a hint towards social distancing and gatherings are still going to be controlled. There's still going to be caution towards kind of letting everybody let loose and do whatever they want to do. So in that sense, social distancing isn't going away. Even if you are going into a restaurant, there's still probably going to be a gap between you and someone else using a restaurant. Or in general, the advice is going to be still keep your distance from people when you're walking down the street or things like that.
Yeah.
So for weddings, that means probably in 2020, it's definitely going to be around. It might creep into 2021. You're not to scare people in 2021. We can't guess what's going to happen in October, November, December this year.
Yeah.
So what I'm really hoping happen is September epic weddings happen. Okay.
We've got one wedding left in our calendar for September.
And that epic wedding is going to happen, say.
And they have to get from Germany to Ireland.
Well, we'll talk about that then. But if weddings happen in September, right?
Okay.
So for late in 2020 weddings, if September weddings start to happen and people kind of see how those happened, October start to happen, and people see, okay, yeah, now it's loosening up a bit, it's a bit more fun, I can see what's happening and I can see how it works and I can make that work. Hopefully that happens, and then November, December.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing, because people have never seen a wedding like actually done under these, you know, type of restrictions.
Correct.
And once you actually start seeing those happy moments, those people enjoying themselves within that, I think it will become easier for people, because people love not robbing each other's ideas, but they get inspiration for other people.
We all learn from each other.
We do,
and taking the best pieces of weddings, or whether even it's something you saw on Pinterest, and kind of doing your own little version of it. That's where you get ideas, and that's no one. It's very rare that someone comes up with a great idea.
Yeah.
Like the book bouquets that we saw recently.
Yeah,
she got that idea from online, but she put her own spin on it, and they were brilliant. So it's all about taking ideas and making them your own.
And I think you're right. Once people start seeing it's doable, and it's doable in a way that like it's actually exciting to do it, then people will actually start moving on to that.
Cool. Quickly, you mentioned travelling.
Yes.
People travelling in general. I think the hint from the announcing
when
of
Leo gave another inspirational speeches, as he likes to do.
He did, yeah. It was less Terminator.
It was less Terminator now. Yeah, it was.
But travelling. So if you're travelling in and it's like, it's not for, you're not an essential worker, and you're not coming in to fix something for 48 hours and then flying back out, or if you're not a truck driver coming in and out of a country and you've kind of got an exemption.
It's just for pleasure.
If it's just for pleasure, if it's casually, if you're coming to see family or if you're planning on coming on a holiday, really you have to quarantine for 14 days. So effectively what they're saying to you is, don't be coming, because if you're coming on a holiday, you're not going to quarantine for 14 days.
It's back to only move around if you need to.
Yeah, and then have a holiday for 1 week afterwards. I suppose it's a long-term holiday grant. If you're coming back from Australia to see your family for 2 months, you're quarantined for 2 weeks and then you've 6 weeks where you can do whatever you want to do. But it's probably the same. I mean, if you come into Ireland, you probably got to quarantine, and then if you go back to your own country, you probably got to quarantine. Now, if you can work from home in your own country, that's fine. But that's probably, people are going to be snookered either side.
Yeah, so it's something to think about when it comes to, like, obviously the couple themselves, depending on where they've got to travel from, but you might be in Ireland, but your brother could be living somewhere else in the world. Your best friend who you absolutely want at your wedding could be living somewhere else in the world, and these are things to kind of consider as well. If you really want them to be there.
Or you might be flying home to get married.
I said that first, yeah. You have to listen to me. Yeah. We'll play this back. Oh, I love this. I love this. I love that we're actually doing this.
I'll just put a bit of noise there and drown you out.
Kind of sounds like you're going for a pee rather than
was not going for a pee.
You
did actually make me put that out last week when I said I'm just going to go for a pee, and you didn't believe me that on certain podcasts they actually pee live.
But he does this right, so he's now changing the subject. So when Benny gets something wrong, and he knows he's wrong now because he's on this, it's recorded, can prove you're wrong. He changes the subject.
I'm not necessarily saying I was wrong. I'm just saying I wasn't.
I'm loving this. This is brilliant. I'm going to play this on a loop.
I wasn't listening.
That's worse.
You're just going yabbader.
Yes, but I said that first because that would be the main thing. Obviously, if you, the couple, need to get somewhere, that's obviously the most important thing.
But if you really want to get married in Ireland, and you could come back in quarantine.
You could, if it's just the two of you. Like, so if we were living somewhere else in the world and all of our family were here, we could come back for 2 weeks, quarantine, have the wedding, go home, quarantine, depending on your situation. But if it's if you're bringing people with you, like, so if, say, I'm from Ireland, but you are from a different part of the world, so half the wedding party are having to come over.
Yeah.
That's a different situation. It is pretty tough going. And it is just something to consider, because it was kind of a grey area of whether you'd have to quarantine coming into Ireland. But I think they're getting more strict on that going forward, from what I've been listening to. Yeah. I think you were supposed to, but I don't know if everybody was from the beginning. Let's be fair about it.
Everybody was doing everything they were supposed to be doing. So if we were to bash through, what's going on in this room? There's so much stuff going on here. What have you done?
So I've created a little cocoon for myself.
Right.
And I'm digitising a few thousand old family photographs.
Where have they come from?
My grandparents' house. We're selling it because unfortunately they've both passed. So they've emptied the house. There's buckets and buckets of photographs. I must say though, for back in the day, there is so many photographs. Like, my grandmother was a nurse, and there must be, I've gone through about 200 photographs already of herself and her friends as nurses.
And she was old.
But I found a photograph there a while ago, and I had written on it 1849. Who has a photograph from 1849?
That just means generations back they were going.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, my family, maybe this is where I got it from. My family are photograph mad.
Maybe it's deep in your blood.
So yeah, I'm digitising them so we can all have them, and heaven forbid it happens, that we'll always have copies.
Very good. That should keep you going while you are
have you not
photographing.
Noticed I've been missing for a few days.
Yeah.
Like, I literally...
Just more enjoying myself down the back of the house.
Okay, so travel is something to consider. But I think people are aware of that. But it is something to consider. The other thing I was talking to you about, and we're not going to have this argument live on this podcast, you need to behave yourself. We went for a walk a while ago with the dog, we were talking about this, and nearly beat him around the place walking him back up the road, is family members that are within the age group of cocooning.
Well, it's not just age group. So so cocooning is both medical reasons, long-term medical issues you may have, or underlying conditions or whatever it is.
They were saying the last issue, people with diabetes just go hide themselves because they're not doing well.
Who was saying?
They were. Do you not read the news? It's like one of the highest.
You listen to like the dirty chat shows.
No, but it's like if they're looking at the categories of people that actually have had fatalities from this, and having diabetes as an underlying condition is one of the top ones.
It's one of the top ones, but a lot of people have diabetes and as well as other underlying conditions, so it's multiple, so diabetes will show up more frequently in the statistics.
You're just going to try and prove me wrong for the rest of this because I proved you wrong at the start. Are we going to have this fight? Let's go. We'll move along. But
cocooning, right? So we were having this fight, but people need to understand as well. So this might be around for 3 or 4 months, where someone who's cocooning, whether they're potentially seriously ill or of an age that is at risk, this could be around for 3 months, could be around for 2 years for someone that's potentially really exposed. So if they were to get the disease, it would be detrimental to them. So it could be a case that they have to be super cautious for like 2 years until this is fixed, or there could be a vaccine before that, or whatever it is. So if you're having your wedding and someone in your family is in the cocooning category, you might be in a situation where it doesn't make a difference if for 2 years down the road, if you're still holding off because you're waiting for that family member to come to the wedding, the actual ceremony or something like that, you might still be in the same situation. So you and that person who is in the cocooning category have to kind of chat it out between your own characters, whether you think the wedding should still go ahead, you can go get married, and you can work out clever ways to fit that person into the day, or whether it's so important that you must wait and you have a particular member of families that you think we must wait for no matter what.
Well, no, I was saying that like some people, like you could be the youngest sibling in your family and your parents could be within that cocooning age group or health category.
Yeah.
You're not, well, I wouldn't go ahead and have my wedding without my mother being able to attend. That's my personal. And I was given the example of Benny's mom, Mrs. Benson.
Mrs. Benson. Give her her title, please.
Mr. and Mrs. Benson. So if Mr. and Mrs. Benson, so Benny's brother's engaged, we were talking about this the last day, and if he were to have his wedding, this is my example, next year, and they were in that category, and he decided to go ahead and have the wedding and told them, I'm going ahead, I'm sorry you can't make it, but I'm having my wedding.
No, but you're not being that blunt.
But it is at the end of the day. You're deciding to have your wedding without them. And you saying they could call in for a hello. So, it's not the same as being present. Right, this is going to get heated.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
so
no.
My solution, as part of the...
It's a complete and utter solution. I'm going to shout that out.
That's terrible now. We're going to have to ban you from the podcast. I'm going to report you to the authorities. As part of the epic September wedding, the add-in is your mother is in a category that is cocooning and is really exposed to this, okay?
Yeah.
But if you were she's in such a situation that it doesn't make a difference. This time next year, this time the year after, the likelihood is it wouldn't be appropriate for her to be going out to a ceremony, a crowded ceremony, going out to a crowded dinner and going crazy on the dance floor.
But looking at the positive side of things, a vaccine hopefully will be developed.
Yeah.
And things can go back to...
That's not going to help your epic September. I know Donald Trump has Project Warp Speed.
To mind Donald Trump. He's not allowed to be...
He's getting...
Can you beep out his name? Because I'm not having him on this podcast. He doesn't get reference.
Activated the Thunderbirds.
Doesn't get reference. Stop talking about him.
And
no way.
Project Warp Speed is going to be a success.
Okay, no.
And there's going to be a vaccine by Christmas morning.
Fabulous. Okay. That'll be a present for all of us.
But, so the solution is, right, say you're in a situation where mother's in a serious situation and you want to have your wedding. The way to kind of involve them in the day is if you were still going to go ahead and get married, you could still potentially see them beforehand, before the ceremony. You could go to the ceremony yourself, maybe video call. They can watch from video call. And then you could call into them and you could still have an outdoor, the outdoor gatherings are allowed. You're going to be super cautious because they're in the cocooning category, but they still get to see you, they have a chat, you spend a bit of time with them, and then it is unfortunate that you have to go off and have the rest of the day without them. But it's not, everything doesn't have to stop if this disease is going to be around for a long time and there's no solution. I'm not saying that you should have your wedding without your mother, but the situation is, it could be really dangerous for your mother to be at the wedding. So you've got to make a decision at what point is, to balance it up, when do I need to get married and move on with my life and whatnot. And if we're going to wait 2, 3, 4, 5 years for COVID 2022 and COVID 2024 to come around the corner.
Don't say that. I'm so glad that we're not getting married at this time and that we don't have parents in Cocooning, because we would be seriously fighting over this, because you seem like and this comes down to different people's personalities and what their tolerance is. Your tolerance would be okay to go ahead and do that. Mine would be, no, I'm not doing it without them. And that's the difference.
And it is down to personalities. And we were really strict. I suppose even with our parents, we talked about it before, where we were really strict, where you can't do that, you can't come over and do that, just wait, because we have that approach.
Well, you're going to protect the people that are closest to you, aren't you?
Yeah, and you should be.
Yeah.
Big time.
Exactly. So, Mr. and Mrs. Benson, I am now your favourite daughter-in-law. Might be your only daughter-in-law at the moment, but I'm your favourite, and don't mind your son. He would have went ahead with the wedding without you.
You could get another piece of information for epic September weddings. So you could have virtual goggles. So Mammy's at home, she's cocooning and she can't make it, right? So you need to get yourself a 360 camera. Stick it in the church or the ceremony or the sanctuary, wherever your ceremony is going to be. Okay, 360 camera so that it can see all around. Put the virtual goggles on Mammy, who is probably of an extreme age, so she probably really won't know what's going on while you're putting these goggles on me. And she can look around the whole room in 360. It'll be absolutely savage.
Not so.
It's almost real.
Almost, but not quite.
Virtual reality.
Okay. This is when we're not going to agree. We'll agree to disagree, darling.
Actual thing about it is, it's a really important discussion that you need to know between yourselves. Yeah. And if you've got a strong opinion, you've got to go with the person who's most sensitive to that opinion, I suppose. But talk to the person who is cocooning, who is...
I mean, they might have their own look on it as well. Because we do have some couples that went to 2022 for this reason.
2022?
Yeah. Because they wanted
So they were going in 2020. And they've just moved right away from it because someone in their family was at risk.
Exactly. And they think there'll be a higher chance of normality come 2022 and then being able to attend.
So that's a good decision because they knew that was their threshold. Yeah. But say it comes to 2022, okay? This is where it probably will be.
Well, if you wait another 2 years, and it's still not,
in the same
then
situation.
you're in it's different.
Yeah, then
it's different. Then we will have your conversation.
Then they're going to have a virtual reality ceremony with epic September.
Epic September.
I'm writing this blog now. I'm going to make a list. So there's going to be 2 lists. So we're going to throw up a blog on the list of questions that you might want to ask your venue.
Yes.
To kind of understand how this thing is
because I'm watching a lot online and people seem to be getting a little bit impatient with their venues because they're asking them certain questions. The venues are coming back saying, I don't have an answer for you now, but it's not their fault they don't have an answer. They don't have an answer because we haven't been given clear instructions. And without those instructions, they cannot move forward. They need them.
Yeah, I mean, we're giving guidance and we're kind of trying to understand what the roadmap says and how people are speaking and interpret what small and larger weddings are. But venues some aren't even open. They might have a team doing administrative work or starting to work at the return to work safety protocols. So they have to understand that. So they have to understand how something might work or not work in their own venue. And then they have to know what a small wedding is. And then they have to know what a larger wedding is. Yeah. And then they have to know any extra restrictions, whether it's when you're serving alcohol, these rules apply or whatever it is. So they have to tease that out. And we're kind of in a lull at the moment where we don't know what those rules are. And that is frustrating if you're trying to judge whether to postpone or not postpone your wedding or to how to take all those rules, make it work for your wedding and still have the fun. Okay?
Yeah, because there's people that are saying, like, I've got 80 people coming to my wedding and they're asking the venue, can you cater for my 80 guests and how will that work? They can't answer that because based on the wedding date it's happening, they don't know what the restrictions will be in place depending on the phases. Will it be small? Will it be larger? And if it is larger, does 80 fall into that large, and can they accommodate 80?
Yeah. So give the venue a bit of time. In the meantime, you can start thinking through potential questions that you want to ask the venue. And then when you ask those questions, it might help the venue because they haven't actually thought that through themselves, or whatever kind of restrictions they give to the questions that you ask, you then know whether that suits or doesn't suit, or you come up with a solution or kind of make it work for your situation. But in terms of the website, we put up a list of questions that you might want to ask your venue, and that might help you spin off into other questions.
The venues are going to get all these same questions over and over and be like, where did these questions come from? So if we kind of think of questions, and if we kind of go from, say, the drinks reception.
No.
You want to go backwards?
I want to go in reverse.
You want to go in reverse?
Yeah, I think it's too obvious to go from start to finish.
Well, you're just like mixing things up for the crack, like.
Mixing it up, making the podcast interesting.
Right.
Dancefloor.
Dancefloor.
Okay, because it's one of the most difficult ones.
Careful how you ask this question now, I think.
There's a question.
When it comes to the dance floor, and when it comes to dancing, it's kind of a question of how will you accommodate the dance floor?
Well, we all know if you had a football field.
You're not getting back into that comment.
Seriously, that's the last
whole jug of coffee.
Last of the top ups.
You'd be bouncing off the chair in a minute.
Okay. If you had a football field, you wouldn't have a problem.
Okay, but we're not getting into that. We're getting married indoors in the venue that people have picked out.
Okay, so we have heard all sorts of bizarre statements around dance floors, whether it's from bands or whether it's from couples or from rumours from hotels that they're going to do this or not do this or whatever. But if you go to your venue and say, am I allowed to have a dance floor or not allowed to have a dance floor? The danger is the venue, if they haven't thought about it, they can turn around and go, oh yeah, that could be a problem. No, you're not allowed to have a dance floor.
And that's why I'm saying be careful of how you ask this question, yeah.
Okay, you're talking to the people and not talking to me.
I know, I'm talking to you too. We're having a conversation.
We're having a conversation?
Yeah.
Okay.
You and me.
You telling me to be careful?
No, I'm telling them to be careful. I'm telling everyone to be
Everybody needs to be careful, be cautious, stay alert, as Boris Johnson would say.
Do you know what you should do? Stay at home.
Stay at home. Just stay at home. Okay, so if you go and ask a blunt question of, am I allowed to have a dance floor, yes or no? Someone being cautious and defensive and trying not to expose their company or their venue to a situation, they may just say no. Okay? So make an assumption that you're allowed to have a dance floor when you're asking the question, and just say, what are your rules or what's your advice around a dance floor? How is the dance floor going to work? So if you put that to the venue and basically say any rules or restrictions around the dance floor, they'll probably have thought it through and will explain how they're going to make it work and not make it work.
Which is still the biggest question. I'm still a bit stumped when it comes to this. I'm trying to figure it out. I saw someone put up a post the last day, and they were like saying it was you can have a band, that's grand, we'll allow your band in, but you're not allowed to leave your table. You're not allowed to use the dance floor. There won't be a dance floor. And you're kind of going, if it was me, I'd be like, would you be getting a band in for people to be ever sitting down? These are the questions you're kind of asking yourself then. Okay, so this is one of the rumours that are coming out. So a venue is basically they're saying, yes, you can have your band. You can have your band. You can have your entertainment, which is kind of like saying you can have your dance floor, but there will be no dance floor. No one's allowed on the dance floor type thing. So that's a restriction. So that's an extreme restriction that they put in place. But I think what they were saying was they wouldn't actually have the dance floor would physically never be cleared. The tables would be on the dance floor, so that there would be no option of people actually getting out there. It would just be.
Okay, so this is your Temple Bar scenario. So imagine you stick people in a banqueting room with a band playing. You've still got all your tables and you've been drinking all day long. It's now 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Should they just be on the table instead of on the dance floor, wouldn't they?
Exactly. They're going to dance at their table. They're going to dance around. It's going to be a party. It's going to be whatever it is. So while the venue is probably being cautious, really Irish people are going to find a way around it and they're still going to have the crack.
I think it was just a little bit premature to say that when we haven't actually been given guidance on how these situations will unfold. Yeah.
So see how it works out. So when your venue gives you restrictions or rules, then go back to your band, or if you've bothered to get, say, a proper DJ
Oh, we're not going to get into name dropping now.
No.
We don't need to talk about Paddy Walsh to the DJ. We don't.
We don't need to mention Paddy Walsh to the DJ.
No, we don't need to talk about Paddy Walsh to the DJ.
Because Paddy Walsh to the DJ gets enough attention by himself.
He gets so much attention himself. Like, I mean, it's a bit much now.
Okay, so whether you've got band or entertainment or whatever it is, tell them this is what the venue is saying I can and can't do. The band are really creative. They've seen lots of different scenarios and you have interesting characters within the band. They will come back and say, okay, this is how we can make this work. And it might be that people are dancing at their tables or whatever it is. But like, I know someone's probably hearing that and going, that sounds so silly. People dancing at their tables. That's just an extreme scenario based on rumours flying around, okay? So don't...
We're not saying that's what's happening.
We're not saying that's happening.
No.
Big time, because you need to talk to your venue and your venue needs to tell you what the rules are, what the restrictions are, and see how it happens. What month is it? I've completely forgotten what month it is.
May.
It's May. So we go through all of June, all of July, all of August before we even know where we are. And people work it out. So if your wedding is in September, October, November, December, it's so far away.
Yeah.
So we'll be given rules. We'll actually see it in action. So you'll be able to make a decision. So that it's a really, really hard one to see how it's going to work out.
Do you know what I was thinking about as well? Photo booths. So you know the way they'd have like loads of props and stuff in a photo booth?
Well, yeah, the crack box is was killed off. The crack box was released probably in January or February, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then the coronavirus came along and it was locked up.
But when it comes to a photo booth, like, you know the way to have all the props and the fun bits and pieces, like you can't be throwing props around. Yeah, you can't be putting a wig on and then I'm going to put a wig on and then you're going to hug an inflatable guitar and then I'm going to hug the inflatable guitar. It's just not.
Yeah, so if Mr. Photo Booth is contacting you and saying we're going ahead or not going ahead, or you're getting onto them and saying what's the story, how's this going to work, Mr. Photo Booth has to come up with rules as to whether, I hope there's someone called Mr. Photo Booth and everybody's like,
be great crack, Mr. Photo Booth. It probably is.
So that's an indirect plug. We don't know Mr. Photo Booth.
Yeah,
they should be coming up whoever
and clever
whatever
ideas, other ways of doing things, because there is other ways of doing things. Yeah,
whatever business a supplier is specialising in, they need to come up with safety rules and make their business work within the restrictions. So photo booth, grand, you can't share objects, but you can probably still stand in his scene or whatever kind of props he has around it that no one's touched.
Selfie mirrors and things like that. Like, I mean, it gives you a little frame and stuff, and it's
so they can make it work. So some of them might work, might not work. So you've got to get into them. And I suppose we're at late at night, so that reminds me of the food. The after dinner food, the late night food,
the buffet type idea.
So normally it's laid out in the buffet, isn't it?
It would
where
be,
you just come up and
like
pick.
Those are trestle tables, and you just pick out what you want.
Yeah, because some people want something and some people don't want something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you're
okay. So most likely the venue has to come up with a solution as to how they're going to serve that, and most likely is they're probably going to have to take it from the buffet from the designated staff, and they're probably going to have to place a selection of food on tables.
Well, they could make up little like packages. Do you know, like an enclosed sandwich package, because sandwiches we've heard of a buffet in the evening, or it could be, if it's hot food, they could have like, you know, little takeaway. You know the ones I'm talking about, the plastic kind of little trays. You could have like them made up separately so that nobody's actually, it's not being contaminated, it's not being handled by other people.
Okay.
So that could be something that they might do. So it's not a case of getting rid of it. It just means they have to think of a safer way of doing it.
So how's the evening food going to work?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Other thing, before I move away from the evening, would be a sweet cart, because that would usually be kind of
I suppose it's late on. I know.
Yeah, it will be,
we see people sneaking in. The dinner bell rings and people go inside, and it's sugar. Like they dive off to the sweet cart and stock up for the speeches.
Yeah. So sweet carts, like obviously you're not going to have open jars and you're just kind of dipping your hand in and pulling out jellies.
Yeah.
But you can have pre-packed again. You can have little bags made up, so people can then just pick up their own little bag, open it, eat them, safe, sorted.
Okay, so
So there is a way around that as well. But again, if you're hiring a sweet cart, ask the person you're hiring the sweet cart from, how are you going to, like, just don't assume that they're going to think of these things. The last thing you want to do is walk into your banqueting room, see a sweet cart set up the way we used to set it up.
Yep.
And now it's just a situation that should not be happening. Like,
so some vendors and some couples are going to think about everything to every degree, and they're going to come up with a solution. And some people are on the day are going to go, I never thought of that.
Yeah, but just don't make an assumption
that
somebody is going to think outside the box on these things.
So you've got to ask. So to an extent, ask every vendor.
Yeah.
What are you putting in place to make this safe?
Yeah.
To make it work.
Like, I know Sweetcarts was something that a lot of hotels would offer with their packages. I think some hotels might just stop offering it now because it's just a little bit of a... I suppose you don't need that type of...
It's not an essential, it's a discretionary. It's a bonus, so they might move it on.
Or they might find a clever way of doing it.
Or they might come up with the little packages.
Yeah, exactly,
so if we're moving back through the day, then it's kind of onto the dining and the social distancing. You were telling me about something you heard about restaurants. I looked it up. I couldn't find any guidance on specific rules. But
they were saying that like the chairs would have to be 2 meters apart in the restaurant. And I know you were saying, like, so if you and me go to a restaurant, that doesn't have to be the case for us because we're from the same household. But how can you prove that? We could be on a date.
Imagine
Tinder.
On a date. Well, Tinder, yeah. There's going to be Tinder situations going on. So I can't imagine in the dining room where it used to be a table, say, of 10 people. If there's now 4 people from the same household, are they going to try and make sure there's a social distancing gap between that household?
This is just the talk at the moment. They were just saying there has to be 2 meters between the chairs.
I think there will be some sort of reasonability, and venues will work with you, and they will probably ask for household groups.
Yeah.
And so they can structure those groups where the groups can be closer together and where there needs to be then social distancing between different household units.
And then that kind of brings, because we were talking about like the space that's available to you. So a lot of venues have very large spaces. Their banqueting rooms are huge. Like in the olden days, they would have put 400 people in that room and made it work. So if you need to social distance to an extent of there needs to be 2 meters between every chair and you need lots of space to do this for, say, now 100 people, no problem. They have plenty of space, happy days. But there are venues where their numbers are 100, 120 anyway. And you do need to, like some boutique type of country houses and places like that. Like, so what would their maximum numbers be now following those restrictions?
Yeah, so one is the guest numbers, but the other is if there is a number restriction and you're going into the traditional large banqueting room, you've got space to social distance. But even when the social distancing is in place, are you completely lost in this banqueting room because your numbers are coming
that's the other side of things. Right? That's the other side of things.
So that's an issue. So talk to your venue and basically understand how the layout's going to work. And then can that banqueting room be divided up if needed be, with still giving you enough room for social distancing so that you're not completely lost?
Yeah.
Or there could be a situation where you suggested maybe to go into a different room, or whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a different room. If the case is that
there's some venues around Ireland anyway that, like, for the more boutique, smaller weddings, they have the function rooms, but they also have restaurants that they cater for smaller weddings in. So this might be something that more and more venues will look at, that they'll have that option. So if you're only bringing 20, 30 people to your wedding, that you can go into a restaurant type of atmosphere. Like, you know,
and you're not totally lost. And it will help create the atmosphere.
Exactly, because if you are in the smaller wedding category and you try to go, for, you know, within that, and you've booked your venue and you want to stay with your venue, and the room can take 200 people, but there's 50 of you, you're lost. So you do have to look at other options like that. So there is 2 sides to that. First of all, you don't want to be lost in there. And secondly, can they cater for 100, if it is 100 people, say, in a larger situation, can they cater for 100 people within the restrictions that are set out for them? For example, 2 meters between the chair. So before you would have got 100 people in there, no problem, but now can they only fit 50? Because they have to space everything out. So these are things to ask them.
Well, since you're skipping on to kind of the guest numbers, so guest numbers.
I'm not skipping.
You are skipping.
You're going what I want.
We were going in reverse order, and now you've gone 1, 2, 4.
No, I'm sitting in the banqueting room.
You're in the banqueting room?
Yeah.
There's a big section
You're
called
not following what's
guests.
going on at all.
Big section called guests.
No.
Guests go in the banqueting room.
Yeah.
But they also have a category by themselves.
Okay.
They're that special.
Are they? They're VIPs, eh?
VIPs. Well, they are VIPs because basically there was 200 people going, and basically 100 of them were redundant.
You made the cut.
Yeah. It's like you're on the 3rd or 4th degree of separation. So it is the best of the best.
The best of the best.
Coming to your wedding.
I'd always be on that list anyway.
You reckon?
100%. It wouldn't be a day without me.
Wouldn't be on my list. So, guest numbers, what you're talking about, venue constraints. So different venues are going to have different constraints. Venues could do large numbers. It doesn't matter what the government restrictions are, they'll be able to accommodate for it. Other more boutique or quirky more restricted venues in terms of what rooms they have and how that works. Are going to be under more constraint. So it might be a case of they have to work out what their maximum number is in terms of when social distancing is applied. And although the larger number, say, might be 100, they might tell you, actually, we can only do 60.
Yeah,
because
it just doesn't fit.
It just doesn't work in our venue.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 60 if you're still going ahead. And then the other thing is they have to tell you, please, people don't start stressing and try to guess and work this out. If the number of restrictions is to include the number of staff, the hotel have to work out how they're going to manage that in terms of the number of staff. They'll tell you a number of guests that you're allowed to invite. So the hotel have to work out allowing for staff members within their restrictions. So they'll tell you what the number is. It could be a case that they're more restricted than what the actual official restrictions are. The venues will have to work that out. What you're trying to find out off them is, what's the max guest numbers you can cater for my wedding?
They won't be able to tell you this now. We're talking about down the line when they have more information, just so people are not going to contact the venue this evening.
No,
and be like,
no.
Right, tell me the answers to these questions.
We put that caveat and we've explained that.
I know, but it's just to remind people that they don't know these answers now.
You hear this question and you're kind of like, wow, this is...
I better ring them tomorrow.
Yeah, another beep going on there. Are we, Laura? So, please think about these things and be aware that these may be things that are going to happen. And I suppose what you can do is now, you know about it now, adjust to it over the next couple of months when the venues start to work it out, so that it's not a complete shock to you when the venues come back online.
You're ready for it. You're prepared.
Yeah, that they're going to say to you, yes, we can do the government rules of 100, or no, we can't do those rules. We can only do 80, 70, 60, whatever it is. Be prepared that it might be that situation. So no one knows what a small wedding is yet. No one knows what a larger wedding is yet. They'll tell us in due course. Okay, so outside of the guests, we've spoke about travelling and then face coverings. So one of the big...
Not face masks, though.
Yes, one of the big distinctions this week was the difference between face masks and face coverings.
Yeah.
And I think it is important because even more so, face coverings means you can really get creative.
You can make your own.
You can make your own.
There is no specifications.
Scarves.
As long as it covers your nose and your mouth.
You could go scream masks.
Scream masks? No, Benny.
You could go like real, very creative. Masquerade.
No. Do you know what a masquerade is? A masquerade is covering your eyes and leaving your mouth and your nose for...
Epic September weddings.
I worry for you sometimes.
Okay, so you did...
No, but we talked about this in the last podcast because some people were asking me, would I have to wear a mask? Well, my guests have to wear a mask. And by the sounds of it, it's advisory but not mandatory in certain situations like public transport, possibly going to the shops, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But in a wedding situation, if you want to wear one, you can, but I don't think someone's going to come out and say it's mandatory.
Nervous Nelly might wear a face covering all day long because, and they might be right to, but in general, I suppose probably what we were being asked, do the wedding couple, they were getting a bit nervous going, do I have to, the wedding couple?
Yeah.
Is there a point where I'll have to wear a face covering? And it won't be, because in general it's advisable, nothing is being enforced. Now, if you're celebrant, officiant, whoever they are, if they kind of tell you a certain rule, and I don't think they will, but that's the closest one.
They might more just wear one themselves for their own protection, but I don't think they're going to ask the room to do the same. And if they do, then get another celebrant.
I suppose what the officiant and celebrant will do is that if they're being really clever, I think what they'll do is they'll just social distance themselves for the entire ceremony. Now that I think about it, and basically they should do that for every ceremony because they're going to be doing so many ceremonies because weddings are going to happen in 2020.
Well, if some lunatic, I'm sorry now, comes along and decides to make up their own rules that if I'm performing your ceremony, everybody's wearing a mask, you just tell them that's lovely. I'm going to get someone else because. Tomorrow's wedding are all going to be there mask free and happy out, and then you look at your wedding and go, what the hell was that about? Why were we all wearing masks? So, and this is what I always say this, just because someone says something, it doesn't mean it's right. Think it through. Like, people come out with the craziest, I won't say the word, all the time, like they do, and do think it true because it doesn't mean it's right, and you could end up in a situation you don't need to be in, and that is an example of it.
This is the situation where if you were to sit down at a table and kind of try work out something, whether it's with friends or families, you'll end up with 10 opinions with 5 people. So don't stress about that. Just work through solutions, whether it's with anybody you're having difficulties with. But celebrants and musicians will probably social distance because they're doing so many weddings every week, because weddings are going to happen in 2020 and they'll be doing 2 and 3 a week in a row.
Yeah.
And the best thing they can do is to keep a 2 meter distance from everybody for the whole ceremony.
And that's easy to do.
Talk you through it.
Yeah.
The best celebrants that we see, they're not on top of people. They give people loads of space. They're with people when they need to be with the couple, but to a great extent.
They're not getting in with the first kiss, like they're not there with them for that.
Exactly. They're not sticking their forehead
sticking their head in between them.
In between the kiss, yeah. Exactly.
It's a whole other discussion.
Indeed. You kind of get yourself in big trouble.
But yeah, so that's kind of face coverings.
Face coverings, but throughout the day, so it might be a case of people, guess the congregation might go, while I'm sitting in this group of 100 people, I'm going to have my face covering on.
If it's a random few people are doing that, that's their choice. You can't tell them they should or should not be doing that.
And then when they go outside after the ceremony, they might take it off because they're in the open air and they're more comfortable. And then depending on how the situation is in the drinks reception and the dining and dancing later on, they might have the covering on or off. So
we shouldn't be.
It's not mandatory, so everybody's not going to have to have it on.
And you shouldn't be judging people either way. So like if someone decides they want to wear a face covering for the day, that's their choice, and they should be allowed to make that choice.
Big time, yeah.
And if you decide you don't want to wear a face covering for the day, again, it's your choice.
Yeah.
So people really need to be like, I know we all have our own opinions, we all think one thing is right or wrong, but the last thing you want to do is make someone feel uncomfortable because they made a decision about their own health and their own safety, which is so important. Don't judge people.
And it might be a case of guests might not know what the rules are, so when people are doing invitations, it might be a little thing down the end where you can say, by the way, in terms of face coverings, it is or isn't mandatory, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And please feel comfortable whichever way you decide to do it. And if you say it in a nice way, it's the same as with the social media and kind of the mobile phones and the media devices, people taking pictures and whatnot.
Yeah.
If you say it in a nice way before the ceremony, that we're going to have this rule regarding phones and social media. If you say it on the invitation in a nice way, if you communicate it 2 or 3 times, people get it and people appreciate it. But if you kind of just have a rule but you don't really communicate it very well, that's when it tends to go off.
People are more than likely going to come to the wedding if you communicate to them that you've thought through every aspect of it. You've thought of their safety, that when you're inviting them, but you're not just inviting them and then hoping for the best, that you're inviting them with the best intentions, that you want everyone to enjoy the day and be safe. That's the most important thing. I was just thinking there, remember I was just saying about like phones and unplugged ceremonies and people standing out in the aisle. Is the new thing now going to be like Uncle Bob standing out in the aisle, big camera, huge face mask in the way
with the welding mask on?
I'll be like wrestling him to the ground
with his PPE gown on, full arm length.
That'll be much more noticeable in photograph. Sorry, it's not funny. Oh no. Okay, I'll worry about that later. So that's kind of like it's back to guest comfort again, and it's something that people, I know we talk about this all the time, but it's so important.
It is really important. Yeah, I mean, if the guests are comfortable, they'll relax and enjoy themselves, and then they'll interact. If they're nervous and kind of the situation isn't thought through, and they go into a situation and it's just not sitting right, they'll be tentative, and the day just will have an atmosphere.
Well, and it won't be a good one.
No, epic but it's September true. Weddings, Laura.
Oh God! Right. What would you like to talk about next? Since I'm being given out to that I'm not talking about things in the order.
No, you skipped the order. We're going to
skip the order.
Yeah, big time now. So the reception is where you wanted to start off, and the receptions again probably come back to what the venue can and can't facilitate.
Yeah.
In terms of, do they have enough space? And we were walking this morning, and you thought about this, because some venues would have couches and tables that tend to be taken up by the older generation, or people who want to sit down, and then a lot of people are happy to just stand around with a bottle of beer or a cup of coffee.
But the chairs run out as well. Like, so, like, because a lot of the time the reception area isn't. Most of the time the reception area is not going to be as large as the banqueting room area. It never would be. So if you've got 100 people at your wedding, there's seats for 20. And there's 80 standing, and people are happy, fine with that. They want to be standing. They're at the bar, but that's all going to change. And a question would be, how were they going to accommodate the drinks reception? And you were saying maybe there could be a pod table, even if you're standing around a pod table for certain groups, or...
I think guests need to be comfortable, and how they're going to be comfortable in the drinks reception is that they know they have a spot and that's their area, and by having a spot they're comfortable to stand in an area with their drink or whatnot. And
will there be table service to these people, because the whole thing of not actually being able to be served at the bar or linger at the bar, these are all things to think about.
Yeah, there will be table service, but they'll be happy in their space, that they've got their spot and they're not encroaching on someone else, and that they're not exposed to interactions that people coming and going, or they're not on top of people, making them feel uncomfortable. So the venue need to come up with a way of how do people fit into this drinks reception in a comfortable way, and they kind of have their spot. And the best one is probably the tall table pods, where you can just place your drink on it, and I've got my pod here.
Yeah.
Grand, there's couches and low tables probably somewhere else, but you're probably not gonna fill the rooms that we've seen in drinks receptions with low tables and couches. It'll just fill up too quickly.
It would, yeah.
So,
and there is some days where we're in a banqueting room, and there's more than enough room. People have so much space between tables, and it's grand. But earlier in the day when we were in the drinks reception, if I wanted to get from one side of the drinks reception to the other, I'd nearly be leaving the building, walking around it and coming in the other door, because you cannot get from one side of the room to the other, because it's just sardines.
Yeah.
And people are happy, the noise level's up, the music's playing, they're all having a great time. But that cannot happen. It
won't happen. Yeah. And that's why the number of restrictions going down. But you're right. Like we know venues where you're at one side of the bar, you're snapping away and you're taking photographs, and there's no point in trying to scoot through everybody to get to the other side of the bar. You go out and go around the back and go in a fire exit.
You leave the building and you go back around again.
Or go in the smoking exit, or whatever it is. That's not going to be a problem for the likes of ourselves in terms of being on top of people. But the guests can't be in that situation, and the guests need to know that they've got their 2 meter radius and that they're not putting someone else out in that situation. The other thing we were kind of thinking of, you've seen afternoon tea a couple of times.
There was a lovely one. They had they actually had their own restaurant, and they got really lucky with the weather. It was an amazing day down in West Cork, and all their guests sat outside, and they called it high tea.
Yeah.
So they had kind of like, we've all seen an afternoon tea or been to afternoon tea, and they served the most beautiful cakes and sandwiches and scones in a high tea or afternoon tea type of format, and everyone because they did it that way, everyone actually naturally sat at their table.
Okay.
And as if it was a banqueting room.
A sit down afternoon tea. Yeah.
There was very little people moving around because they got their spot. They were sitting in the sun. They had their cakes. They had their food. The only reason they moved was to get another drink or use the facilities, and it kind of just. It naturally kind of had this lovely feel to it, where people were fed and drank and happy, and it was actually one of my favourite weddings I've done, because they just did it in their own way. It was a bit of a boutique wedding. There was probably only about 80 people there, but they had an afternoon tea before they fed them later in the evening.
Cool.
So
where the cake is normally cut later on and served later on with the evening food when there's dance act, is probably going to naturally become less of a focus if the night is less mental and people are not going to be on the sugar buzz and kind of looking for that. The way you could probably maximise the cake cutting is to bring it forward and have that type of situation, whereas the drinks reception is going to have a different feel to it, because it's not going to be everybody milling around, going from group to group, having drinks, talking away, going up to a buffet back and forth. It's going to be more like a service. So if you were to cut your cake at the reception, that kind of creates a focal point
which isn't a new thing.
We've seen it again. It was a fresh cake. We saw it at a wedding where it was kind of a naked cake with loads of fruit and cream and fresh stuff. So really to maximise.
I think that was done by was it the Baker Boy, Brian? Baker Boy. I think it was Baker Boy. Was it Baker Boy?
You're terrible.
I think it was Baker Boy. I think it was Baker Boy. Yeah. I think I did a podcast with Baker Boy before. If you looked at.
I wasn't going to mention that it was at Ballinlicker House.
What was it, Ballinlicker House? Was it? That's a lovely venue. Yeah.
So, if you cut the cake, you kind of have something that's kind of a focal point.
And it gives people something to do for a minute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? And if you were then to serve a portion of the cake out and put it out like a high tea, onto each table, the cake gets used, it creates a different atmosphere, and it probably just brings something a little extra into the reception when other things are going to be taken away from the reception, the drinks reception.
Yeah.
And it's just something that people might want to consider because it does work.
It does work, yeah.
We've seen it, and you might want to bring something extra into the reception if you're trying to make this work.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's something to think about. There's an idea.
And
we're full of ideas.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
But in general, the traditionally what there would be is self-service kind of teas and coffees, maybe buckets of beer. That's probably going to be gone in terms of someone's probably going to have to serve
anything self-service that you have to queue up for or move around for needs to be probably taken away.
Okay.
They need more control over it. You can't have people just wandering around.
Yeah.
And it's actually, I know we're talking about this the last thing. This is really getting into details of it. But the bathrooms, like, so the toilet facilities.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, any other woman out there will know what I mean when, you know, you're at a wedding and you go in to use the bathroom and the stalls are full and there's probably about 20 women in the bathroom at once, just standing around, chatting, fixing your hair, doing your makeup, using the baskets that are around. And it's kind of a bit of a socialising area. Women do this. We have chats. But you can't just have an unlimited number of people using, especially in a bathroom, because in that kind of tidying, like...
I think the situation is going to be, when people go into a bathroom now, it's going to be get in and get out.
Yeah.
Try touch as little as possible and just wash your hands and get going.
But you know the way sometimes you end up queuing on the way in, you don't want to be in a queue situation. Because
so is there going to be like a toilet steward?
There almost need to be.
Or a toilet
a little
station.
clicker. You know the clickers for like the bouncers have. That's 5 people in the bathroom. Click,
you were in there far too long.
Click. Yeah, you're knocking the door. Sorry, you've been in there for 2.3 minutes. Yeah.
But those baskets as well, they're going to go.
Yeah, they're going to have to. Because anything that you're sharing, you can't share with people. Like, sharing is something like that. Because there'd be deodorant in there, hairbrushes, clips, like mints, all sorts of stuff.
God.
Like, you know, we've even seen baskets of condoms. That happened. Do you remember?
Up, didn't you? Yeah.
I did. I had to. Sorry.
Yeah.
It was. I literally. I think we both actually used the bathroom with the two of us, different bathrooms, male and female, and the two of us came out and looked at each other and went, "Was that in your bathroom?" Because it was in my bathroom.
And I think Rhonda saw the look on our faces.
Oh, I was like, "You are a legend."
She goes,
never
of course
seen
it was.
Of course they're in there.
I'm not having that on my watch.
Sorry.
So, Rhonda was full on.
I want to go back to weddings. I want to go out of the bathroom and be like, "Did you see the basket of condoms?"
She was some character.
Sorry. But yeah, so things like that.
Dublin weddings. You wouldn't see that in Cork.
You wouldn't see that in Cork. Okay.
So if you were kind of the big thing to take from this week is that we're in phase 1. It's good. We're moving along.
Absolutely. Love a bit of progression in my life.
That
I'm still there for quite a bit.
We were on a standstill.
I'm all excited for it tomorrow. Now we're going to wake up tomorrow and nothing's going to be different in my life, except for the fact that I can probably hang out with my parents a bit longer. That's it.
Oh, that's true actually. So we can meet up in groups of 4 outside for a short period of time.
We just leave the child at home because she'd be number 5.
Poor child.
Didn't actually think of that. We were going on about like how my parents probably could, sit in the garden, whatever. 5 of us.
Whoa.
We can pull straws.
Child can wait in the car.
Straws.
We can have a stopwatch and rotate.
What do you mean, poor child? She's also told me that she was asking me last time, when do I think that the this will be over? I said, why, Amy? Because you're 18. No. Because I'm moving to Granny's. And I was like,
she's moving to Granny's?
Cheers, Amy. Yeah, because apparently Granny was in her room the last day, clearing it out, making it more grown up for her for when she's back for sleepovers.
Right, okay.
Oh, like the two of them are on like a little bit of a project. Like my mother's robbing my child, and my child is running away.
She's making like a little
apparently her food
cave.
Is better.
She's better food than us.
Yeah, and she's also asked her to make her certain meals, package them up and deliver them out because she's missing them so much. But yeah, this is just but yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine.
What will be fine?
You won't come. Myself and Amy will go. But
so, we're on phase 1, we're moving along, which is good.
I might buy some paint. I do a bit more painting.
New inquiries are coming in.
New inquiries
so people
are
confident that weddings are going to happen.
And people are booking their venues without them being open, which I wasn't too sure would they. I'm sure not everybody will, but it's happening.
So humans are prevailing and they overcome. Yes, and
I think we're actually at a point of I'm not waiting anymore. I'm done. I'm moving on with my life where I can.
Okay.
And if I had to do it in a different environment, I will.
It's only been 8, 9, 10 weeks.
It's a long time. It's a long time. Like if you had a baby and the baby turned 8 weeks, you'd be like, I can't believe the baby's 8 weeks old already.
Okay.
Can't believe it.
Right.
8 weeks is a long time.
It's a long time.
It is.
Okay. Yeah. It'll be grand. September weddings are coming soon. And
you're going to be so sad when September comes along and you look at the calendar and it's empty.
It's no weddings.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm going to watch everybody else's wedding. Come and see. They're having an epic September wedding.
All right.
We could have been there.
So point it out to me when it happens. Can't wait.
Well, someone's going to do an epic September wedding.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be epic. Mm-hmm. Venues. Be patient with your venues to an extent. Okay. They don't know the answers to everything yet. Keep in communication.
Yeah.
And find out what they are.
As long as they're being proactive with you. So like if you send them an email, they're answering your email. If they missed your call, they're still returning your call. Because I'm also hearing from people that they're getting silence from their venues, which that's not okay.
They could be closed.
Yeah, but you still have to have a representative. Like, the hotel can be closed if the wedding coordinator hasn't gone and...
They can work from home. I know they probably have access and whatnot.
So, you want correspondence in your venue, but if they can't answer your question, they will. They will come back to you when the procedures are in place.
Yeah. Think it through. Come up with questions. Come up with your own version of questions and be ready to have a discussion and feel out whether your venue is on it, whether they've got protocols and kind of got measures in place and ideas in place to make your wedding work.
Exactly.
And then put the questions to them. You'll get to a place whether it's a good situation or you need to work at it. We'll put those questions up online to kind of help people have a starting point.
Will we?
We will.
How about you do that and I'll go back to digitising photos?
You're going to scan. You've only got a few more thousand. There's
I've got a few thousand more to go, but I'm actually I thought I'd be bored of it faster than I was, but I think it's because it's my family. It's kind of like a little bit of a trip down memory lane. I'm laughing at my grandparents. I found one the last day there and it was a picture of my gran and granddad when they were I'd say they were maybe 20, and it's an old photo, and on the back of it, it has Eileen and her boyfriend. Sean King written on the back of it, and I was like, oh, how sweet are you? But yeah, so he's like made little notes on all the back of the photographs as well, so you've got the years and you've got like what they're up to and stuff, but like he's kind of putting me to shame because he's done so much to actually put this together. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
So are you actually going to start printing photographs now because you see these? Isn't there a difference between...
I'm doing it the other way around. I'm taking prints and digitising them. But yeah, no, we do need to start...
But isn't there a difference between when something is actually physical as opposed to on a screen?
Yeah, it's lovely. No, it is lovely. And we need to start taking more photographs.
Of ourselves?
Yeah, of ourselves and our own family.
One of the downsides when you're a photographer, you concentrate so much on other people.
You do.
The last thing you want to do when you go home is pick up a camera.
Yeah, and there's some days, and I say that, but then we're on the way out the door and I'm like, I know, just bring it.
Bring the camera. It's
bring the camera.
Yeah, it's kind of an addiction.
No, but we do. We need to start documenting our own lives a bit more. That's not the Instagram documentation of your daily day 63. What am I on to now?
True. And I suppose from looking at all these, and they are pretty cool, so many people get their wedding photographs and they don't print something out, or they wait a long period of time and then they come back to us like 18 months, 2.5 years later, doing wedding albums and doing it so long. But then when they actually get them, like, they're so happy. Like,
like Sophie and Shane got their album there Friday.
Okay.
And they both got on to me separately saying like they were so delighted with their album, and I think it kind of like they were more like, obviously like they got well over 1,000 photographs from us digitally after the wedding. It was a great wedding, but they were more that you could tell there was more excitement from them.
Yeah, when you
to have the wedding album,
to have it, it's big difference.
It was lovely. It really was.
So even if you like pick out 1 or 2 photographs and print them and put them in a good frame, like the difference is amazing when you actually do that.
Yeah, no, it is lovely. Yeah, so yeah, document your lives, people. Document your lives, because when your grandchildren are sitting at home, but going back over your life, they want to see what you got up to.
Exactly, and it's I suppose when you do pass it on generation to generation, you get value out of this.
I do, yeah. Yeah,
so that's pretty remarkable. Yeah,
it is, and it's absolutely. I knew there was old photographs there, but the 1800s. Who has photograph from the 80s and like written on the back of it who it is and what was going on?
Wow, that's
crazy.
Cool. That's brilliant. Yeah, that's really, really good.
But it's very cool. It's very, very cool. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm going to go back to that. You go and write out the questions to people on the blog.
Okay,
that'll be your job. We'll get the podcast going. Do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll do it overnight. Yeah, and get it done Monday morning. Grand. People seem to be in the format of they like on a good podcast on a Monday morning, and it's kind of it's a nice way to start it because. The reason why we record on a Sunday is to allow all the kind of developments to happen.
Yes.
And then have a discussion about it on Sunday because tomorrow's going to be an interesting day. Day 1, phase 1.
I'm just going to be so entertained by looking at the internet, just watching the stupid people do. But I hope people, don't just like Simon Harris said, just because the hardware store is open, it doesn't mean you need to go to the hardware store.
Yeah.
And there will be silly queues and there will be traffic everywhere, and we plan on staying at home and going for a cycle. That's what we're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah. But do stay safe. Let's beat the virus. Let's kill it off.
Beat the virus. Yeah,
big time. And
let's do it.
So that we can have weddings. July, August, epic September.
Go back to living, that would be nice.
October, November, December. Do you think we can have a normal Christmas wedding like we do every Christmas? That would be pretty cool if by Christmas, wedding it was almost as if nothing was going on. Grand, we're all cautious.
It'd be amazing. I'd love to come to Christmas and be like, do you remember that thing that happened there earlier in the year?
Yeah.
We're still living with it.
Yeah, can't believe that it's
I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how optimistic I feel about that, but it would be amazing.
That's my hope. I'm staying positive for the second half of 2020. We're going to do it. Christmas wedding. Okay. Right, we're going to say goodbye. How would you like to say goodbye this week, darling? I think we should just say goodbye.
Okay. That's much easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you want to...
Do you want to say it together?
Unless you want to do doop-de-doop there.
Doop-de-doop-de-doop. Okay. So, from me, Laura... I'm just Laura now.
You're just Laura.
It doesn't have as much of a ring to it. But I'm still first. It's the Laura and Benny. Like Laura and Benny.
I think I should get it the Benny and Laura podcast.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, we're not going back to this argument. This argument went on for weeks when we set up the company years ago. So, for me, Laura, you interrupted me. How can we not get this right at the end?
I'm Benny Benson.
And I'm Laura Benson.
You're just Laura Benson?
I am. I'm Laura Redhead Benson, but I'm also Laura Benson, but I'm also Laura.
The grey's gone.
Yeah, I know, love. I woke up and I reversed the aging process.
You went in reverse?
Christine O'Sullivan. I'm going to put you another plug in there. Christine O'Sullivan, who is an amazing upstylist for a wedding, but also has her own salon, did a consultation for me by a photograph because my hair colour is absolutely ridiculously hard to match. She sent me out 3 different colours to mix and then talked me through the process of how to colour my hair, how to let it dry, how to wash it, how to condition it, how to wash it out, everything. And Christine actually, the results, the 2 of us were like, okay, I didn't think it was going to be that good. Thank God. So yeah, for the next 6 to 8 washes, darling.
Okay.
I won't be grey.
That's cool.
That's very cool.
So you adapted and overcame.
I did. I adapted and overcame.
So there are solutions to absolutely everything under these constraints.
That's it.
Your wedding will be epic. It can happen. It won't be a grey hair situation.
Yes. So I am definitely Laura Redhead Benson today. I've got as much red hair as I did at the beginning.
Right. Well, I am Benny Benson.
And I'm Laura Redhead Benson. And we're going to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.